So let's talk about Julian Alvarez, because this is a very interesting development if true, and I wanted to get your take on it. So Moby Haig put up a post earlier on X saying Spanish media has reported that there is a 150 million euro release clause in the contract for Julian Alvarez, and he does say pending confirmation. So I just wanted to get your thoughts on that. Let's say Alvarez release clause exists and it is about 127 in pounds, something like that, 127 million in pound. Now, do I think Julian Alvarez is worth 127 million pound? No, I don't. But at least it's an option that we know is there. So there was talk that we'd have to pay similar money for Alexander Isak. And again, I don't think he's worth that money. But I'm very intrigued to see what direction we go with regards to the attack. And I'd also want to stake my claim and put my flag in the sand to say, I think it should be Jota and Darwin that moves on, and not Diaz and Darwin. Because to me, they're more worrying with their levels of performance. Diogo Jota I don't recognise from the same man who has served us well over the years. We've always known Diogo has injury concerns and sometimes his body lets him down, but his form has dropped off a cliff. So for me, they're two forwards that I think we need to prioritise replacing. Because yes, we know we need a left back. That's clear for everyone to see. But if Mohamed Salah hadn't have had the season he did in front of goal, where would we be right now? Because it's fair to say our central strikers have absolutely let us down this season. Our wide players have been carrying the burden of goal scoring, whether it's Diaz chipping in with, I think, his best Premier League season. Mohamed Salah, of course, having a great season statistically as well. And Cody Gakpo chipping in with a few. It's the centre area that's let us down. And whilst I love Diaz as a player, I don't like him through the middle. I feel like we're only doing that because we're so stuck, because Darwin and Jota are just so far removed from the levels required that we're losing a bit by putting Diaz through the centre. Now, in one way, it's good because it gets to have Gakpo, Diaz and Salah on the pitch, but I do feel like it's a glaring deficiency in the team. And Diaz tries his best, you're never going to be lacking in effort and gets himself into the right areas at times, but he's not a natural number 9. So I think that is a big concern for me going into this summer and what we're prioritising. Striker should be the number 1 through the door for me. Personally, I think we should get the 150 million for Nunes. I've never seen somebody defend a goal better, said Alex Hardy. Look, I don't know, and I've said this quite a bit, we may get a very good indication of where Liverpool's forward interest lies with where Darwin goes. So, lots of talk of a potential double deal coming in from Saudi with an offer for Diaz and Darwin. I think it's Al Hilal, but excuse me if I'm wrong on that one. So yeah, it's going to be very interesting to see how the window opens up on June the 1st and what business is done, both from a selling and potentially from a bringing to the club perspective. How much would Osimhen cost? Don't see him being mentioned with us lately. There have been a few links, Naheem, to Victor Osimhen. I just don't think he's the guy, to be frank with you, mate. But that's just a personal opinion. There was a couple of pieces that suggested that he was one of maybe 4 or 5 forwards that Liverpool were looking at. I think Sesko, Osimhen, Akitika, and maybe one. I can't remember the other ones because it wasn't Cunha and it wasn't Delap. So forgive me for forgetting, but I just don't think he's the guy. And I think he would have been an easy one to get if Liverpool did want to sign him, because obviously Napoli are going to want to sell. He's only at Galatasaray on loan. I just don't see him being the guy. But then again, I'll be entirely honest with you and say I can't sit here and tell you who I think Liverpool are going to sign through the centre, because I haven't got a clue. I know my own preference, but I don't know who the number 1 target is. Stevie Boy said, season done for me. Bring on the trophy presentation and transfer window. Hoping the owners pay up. Yeah, so am I. Very much so, hoping that they pay up. Because we need it. We do. We need it. Whatever the reason for us winning the league title this season, whether it is we were better than everybody else, whether it is anything, doesn't matter. We know what deficiencies we have, and if they aren't addressed, well, then we're going to get the answer that the owners don't give a damn. But to be fair, it looks like they are going to spend some money. It's just a matter of how much money, and are we going to be satisfied with the players that come in? Big Bud 71 said Nunes looked like he could be good, but is disappointed. He might be the next Anthony. He's killing it at Milan. Oh, he would kill it at Milan. Sorry. Honestly, this is going to sound callous, and I promise you, I don't know how else to say it. I don't really care where Darwin goes at this point. He's annoyed me more than anybody else. I'm actually more annoyed at him than I am with Trent. Genuinely. I can understand the selfishness of Trent. Humans are inherently selfish. Looking after yourself and your interests, I can get. I don't like it, but I can get. Darwin, I just can't figure out. I just don't know. I just want rid of him at this point. Honestly, what he said about the club and not being played, it really, really wound me up, because I say a lot of things about this football club that I do and don't like. I have some positive things to say, some negative things to say. But I'll never question the ethos of the club. And I would never make an accusation of not treating a player correctly over a 5 million quid. What he said really wound me up. And I don't think enough has been made of it amongst Liverpool circles. He shouldn't be anywhere near the pitch, just for that alone. Ash said, I was optimistic regarding the summer, but Ornstein comments and Arna's comments recently have poured cold water all over it. Now I'm worried that we'll cheap out and hear this team has won a trophy, blah, blah. So what particular David Ornstein comments has you concerned, Ash? Because, I think I've seen most of them, and there's nothing that's rang alarm bells for me. The manager I always expect. Like, I never expect a manager to come out and say a title-winning team needs 6 or 7 players publicly. I wouldn't expect that of the manager. But behind the scenes, I certainly hope that he knows the deficiencies in the team that he needs to address. Don't forget the extensions of Salah and Van Dijk's contracts. There's significant costs. Others to follow, like Canadian agreement, can be reached. Oh, so that was it. Okay, cool. There's no denying that extending Van Dijk and Salah costs money. But let me, I guess, press back to David Ornstein's comment with something like this. It would have cost even more money if they didn't extend them. So the idea that extending them is a reason for us to expect less in the transfer market, I don't think is a fair viewpoint, because, well, what if we didn't extend them? We'd have to go out there and spend a lot more money to replace them. Then maybe you would have had an argument to say to Liverpool fans, temper your expectations a little bit, but we've extended players that are here. I think that saved us money, if anything, in the long run. So I certainly wouldn't be using that as a reason to feel like if we don't have a summer that sees us strengthen, that's an acceptable excuse. Because also, another thing to add to that would be, well, we went the whole season without giving them that rise anyway, so we probably saved money. And if we had have extended them a year ago, we would have had to pay them that salary this year. So I guess, look, there's loads of different ways to look at it, but ultimately, I don't think Van Dijk and Salah can be used as an excuse not to spend for any reason. The detective said, if we end up losing Darwin and Chiesa, who would you replace Chiesa with? I know you like Alvarez, and I think he'd be great up front. Who are some of the other players you'd like to see us get? So if you're replacing Chiesa, I'm talking Brian Mbeumo, ideally Rodrigo, somebody like that. You don't want to block the pathway for somebody like a young Rio, but you also do want to make sure that you're sorted for the here and now as well. So, yeah, I think Brian Mbeumo would be great on the right-hand side as an option, because I think he's an incredibly underrated player. Through the centre, I love Alvarez, but I don't know if that's realistic. I don't know enough about Ekitike. Sesko I like, but I also understand why people would have some reservations there. It's a difficult one. Jonathan David looks like, is it Napoli? I've seen some club in Serie A were pushing to try and get Jonathan David on a free. If it's not Napoli, my apologies, but it is somebody in Italy. I read that a while ago, so I'm glad we're not bringing him in on a free, because it would have just felt like the cheap option. I wouldn't have minded Delap, to be honest, as a punt, as a second attacker, but I think he'll probably go somewhere like Chelsea. And Cunha, it's just not worth the risk, in all honesty. So yeah, I really don't know. But Chiesa was the question you asked, and for me, somebody like Mbeumo would be the answer.